Hello friends and welcome back to my channel. Today is an exciting day. I have finally finished Harry Potter number 5, Order of the Phoenix. It took me a month, but I got through it. I can officially say that I did not hate this as much this time around. This has been my least favorite of the series. There's a lot of emotions going on. There's a lot of impulsive behavior going on. There's a lot of Harry lashing out at his friends. There's a lot of Harry dealing with his emotions on top of Voldemort's emotions, on top of everybody else's emotions. And it's so annoying. Like, I understand it. I get it. But it's annoying. And of course, we almost have a second villain in this one. We have Professor Umbridge. Who's hilariously described as a toad, but it almost feels lazy because, like, she offsets her obviously ugly appearance with this falsely feminine, high-pitched girlish voice, this femininity, the pink frills and the bows in her hair, and it's laughable, but I don't know, like, it feels lazy, but it also feels right, so I don't know how to take that. So I'm just diving right in, okay? Thoughts for this book are everywhere, scattered. I could talk about so many things, but there are 3 things that I would like to touch on really quickly, and then I'm going to close this out because it's a long book. It's ridiculously long. This is over 800 pages, and trust me, I felt every page of it. I did want to talk about 2 characters and then one really frustrating situation. Neville. We learned so much about Neville in this book. We see his Gram in this book. We see his grandma. And she's a very austere person. She's very upright. She's very straightforward. But she's also had to deal with, you know, her son and her daughter-in-law tortured into insanity. And so she's had to bring up her grandson. She regularly brings him to visit his parents. She's dealing with the household. She's, you know, dealing with family. She has to be a very strong woman. So for Neville to kind of be afraid of his Gram, I almost feel like it's more of like a respect than but he also understands like his Gram is very capable. And so there is that fear. But I think he's also afraid of like disappointing her. I kind of get that vibe from it. But we also learn that Neville is using his dad's wand. Like, no wonder he's having a hard time with spells. No wonder he's having a hard time with magic. No wonder he's kind of looked at almost like a joke and an embarrassment. We know from the 7th book, I don't know if it comes up previously, but we know that witches and wizards who use another person's wand, their magic isn't going to be as powerful. Their spells and their magic isn't going to go as well, and it might not even perform at all. And so when learning that Neville's using his dad's wand, like, no wonder he's having a hard time. But then contrast that with in DA, Dumbledore's army, all those meetings, he's vastly improving. Like, even though he doesn't have his own wand and a wand that's like chosen him, he is still vastly improving. He's still, you know, growing by leaps and bounds in understanding spells and being able to cast spells. And it's wonderful, and it's so heartening to see because I feel for Neville. I love Neville. Like, Neville's the best, but we also learn that he's kind of, I don't want to say a foil for Harry, but he's kind of a parallel to Harry. You have these 2 boys, according to the prophecy, who were born at the end of July, and they both could have been Voldemort's, like, you know, equal. But Harry was chosen. So you have this weird, like, dynamic where, like, Neville and Harry are equals. It's just that Harry has been the one picked by Voldemort to be the rival, the equal, or whatever. And so, I don't know, I feel so much for Neville in this book, and I just love him so much more. Like, Neville is one of my absolute favorite characters. And we also get another one of my absolute favorite characters, Luna Lovegood. She's kind of thrust upon us. There's no previous mention of her. I mean, she's odd enough, and she's kind of, like, kooky enough. I don't know if that's the right word. But she has her own mannerisms and stuff, and she has her own behavior, and the headdresses for the Quidditch matches. I feel like it should have been mentioned previously, but it wasn't in any of the books. So, I mean, whatever. But you get Luna, who's just her own person, and she's her own style, and she just kind of acts like she's daydreaming, and she just kind of floated in. But I think she's very much aware of what's going on, and she's very much aware and taking things in. And she very much understands her position and how people think of her. She's just almost created this bulletproof casing, this aura, this self-preservation, it almost feels like. But at the same time, she's very much like herself, and she's very much like, this is how I am, and I'm kind of odd. And she just leans into it and goes with it. And I like that. I really, really like Luna. And she's a Ravenclaw, and I'm a Ravenclaw. Like, as much as I wanted to be a Hufflepuff, I am a Ravenclaw, okay? And then the last thing I really wanted to talk about, because I didn't want this to be too long of a video, I wanted to discuss the whole Umbridge, Defense Against the Dark Arts. You know, you just have to know the theory. And if you know the theory well enough, and if you've read about it enough, you'll be able to do the spell or the incantation or the jinx or whatever when the time comes. You don't need it now. No one's attacking you. You know, you don't need to practice it. Contrast that with charms and transfiguration. When have we ever heard about charms or transfiguration and Harry hasn't been given extra homework to practice a spell because he's not learning it well enough, or he's still kind of confused about it, or he's still not able to perform it? Like, the homework for charms and transfiguration always feels like it's either an essay or it's to practice the spell. It's to practice what they've learned. In charms and transfiguration, you always have, like, obviously the knowledge part where they're learning the incantation, they're learning the wand movements, they're learning how it's supposed to sound, they're learning how it's used and why it's used. And then they practice it, like, literally. So many times it was like, okay, so they had to practice, you know, silencing their crow or their frog. Okay, they had to practice turning their hedgehog into a teapot. Okay, they had to practice, you know, turning their matchbox into a box of needles or whatever. Like, so many instances where they're practicing spell work. They're not just learning the theory, they're practicing it. So Umbridge's approach is so laughably wrong and so laughably, like, where did this come from? It just, I don't know. It drove me nuts. Her whole character is just a parody, okay? It's just a character. It's just ridiculous. I don't want to talk about her anymore. Anyway, but that's all I really wanted to talk about. There's so much more I could talk about. We could talk about Harry all day long. I don't know. I'm on the edge with Harry. I understand him, but I hate him. Snape. Snape is another instance where I'm like, still hate him. There were one or two instances where I was like, okay, Snape's not as much of a dick in this scene, but he's still a giant dick, like, you know? So that's really all I have to say. I'm done talking about this. Thanks for listening. I'll see you all in my next video. Bye.